Chakra, Kundalini and Chakra Bhedna. Along the Sushumna there are 6 nodal points or centers, through which the Ida and Pingala nadis crisscross each other as they move upwards from the base of the spine up to the roof of the nostril, in a spiral way. These nodal points are known as Chakra, the wheel, or Padma, the lotus. At each of these centers the pranic energy functions in a specific way. It controls the activities of the internal organs situated near these points and are also associated with the progressively more and more subtle levels of consciousness as one moves from the lower to the higher centers. On the arousal of Kundalini, when the prana starts rising up along the Sushumna, the energy field at each of these centers gets activated, thereby influencing the functions of the internal organs and also making the individual enter into a higher and higher state of consciousness. When the brain, the Sahasrara chakra, the consciousness gets transformed completely, taking the individual into a transcendental state known as Turiya or Unmani or Samadhi. There is an elaborate description of these chakras and also of the upward movement of the Kundalini through them. This process involving the piercing of the chakras while moving upward is known as Chakra Bhedna. A brief description of these chakras is given below. A. Muladhara chakra. This is the lowermost chakra, situated at the tail end of the spine, at the level of perineum. The perineum is an area between the genitals and anal opening and forms the base of the abdominal cavity. Kundalini lies here in a dormant state. This dormant state is equated with the state of the compressed coils of the spring, which when decompressed releases the energy. For the same reason it is described symbolically as the coils of the sleeping snake, which when aroused raises up its head upward. The dormant state of Kundalini represents the existing but yet to be actualized possibilities, including the possibility of the highest state of yoga consciousness, which are already there in each individual. As long as the Kundalini remains in the dormant state, the consciousness operates at the ordinary level, remaining engaged with the sense data produced by the contact with the gross, finite material objects. But when it is awakened through the yogic process, the inner awareness gradually becomes more subtle and refined, ultimately changing the perception of the objective world totally and making the individual aware of the silent, unchanging spiritual substratum behind and beyond the ever-changing objective world. This also brings in the realization that the inner individual consciousness and this all-present substratum is one and the same entity. The Muladhara chakra, in which Kundalini remains in dormant state, is symbolically represented as the lotus with 4 petals because 4 kinds of subtle energies work at this center. B. Swadhisthana chakra. This is the second chakra in the ascending order, which is situated at the level of pubic symphysis, a bone just above the genital organ. It is represented as the lotus with 6 petals, as 6 subtle energies work at this center. C. Manipura chakra. This is the third chakra from below, which is situated at the level of umbilicus. It is represented as a lotus with 10 petals, as the number of subtle energies working at this center is 10. D. Anahata chakra. This is the fourth chakra from below and is situated in the chest at the level of heart. It is represented as a lotus with 12 petals because 12 kinds of subtle energies work at this center. E. Vishuddha chakra. This is the fifth chakra in the ascending order and is situated in the throat at the level of vocal cords. It is represented as a lotus with 16 petals, as the number of subtle energies operating at this center is 16. F. Agya chakra. This is the sixth chakra in the ascending order, situated at level of Bhumadhya, the center of the eyebrows, inside the cavity of the head. It is represented as the lotus with 2 petals, as the 2 subtle energies converge here. G. Sahasrara chakra. This the highest center inside the brain under the roof of the skull cavity and is represented as the lotus with 1,000 petals. These 1,000 petals connote the 1,000 ways or the innumerable ways the creative energy of the consciousness functions when the Kundalini power reaches this level. When this center is fully activated, then comes a stage when one transcends all the creation and reaches the source of this creative energy in the form of silent, unchanging, all-pervading consciousness. The creative energy of consciousness is known as the Shakti and the unchanging conscious principle is known as the Shiva. The highest state of yoga is described as the joining of Shanti with Shiva, when the process of becoming comes to an end and only the state of being the Sat, its awareness of being so the Chit and the bliss showered by this awareness the Ananda the state of Satchidanand alone remains. Though these centers are described as the Chakra, wheel, or the Padma, lotus, it is but a symbolic description. Though their location inside the body has been described in a very precise way, they are not in the form of some anatomical structures which could be demonstrated or examined objectively. Their presence is perceived mainly by becoming aware of the subtle sensations arising at the level of pranamaya kosha. These centers are the nodal points where one can feel the subtle activities of prana in a very intense way. As the subtlety of the inner awareness gradually increases, one slowly starts becoming aware of the higher and higher centers, and thus the awareness of the consecutively higher centers is associated with the changes in the field of consciousness itself. These chakras represent the hierarchical pattern in the control of various psychophysiological functions, the lower chakras representing the more gross and mundane life functions while the higher ones represent the more and more refined and subtle functions. This fact becomes clear from the way the Panchamahabhutas, the 5 basic elements forming the material world, are represented at those centers. Their order of representation is as follows: Prithvi, the earth, is represented at Muladhara. Apa, the water, at Swadhisthana. Teja, the fire, at Manipura. Vayu, the air, at Anata, and Akasha, the space, at Vishuddha Chakra. In Agya Chakra, the Manas, the mind, is represented. In the same way, the sway of the 3 gunas, basic qualities or the tendencies of tamas, rajas and sattva, over these chakras, indicate the concept of this hierarchical pattern in the activities of these chakras. The tamas, the dense, base or the gross qualities, predominate in the functions of Muladhara and Swadhisthana chakras. The rajas, the active, refined and subtle qualities, predominate in the functions of Manipura and Anata chakra. While the sattva, the most refined and illuminating qualities, predominate in the functions of Vishuddha and Agya chakra. To activate the Sahasrara chakra means transcending all these qualities and find oneself in the state of being, unconditioned by any qualities. When the Kundalini is awakened and the prana starts moving through Sushumna, the upward journey is much smoother unto Manipura chakra. But thereafter the journey becomes more tedious with the obstacles at the Anahata, Vishuddha and Agya chakra. Therefore, they are also known as granthis or the knots, difficult to untie. Each of these granthis is governed by the particular deity representing the particular aspect of the creative force within, and accordingly each one is known by the name of that particular deity. The granthi at the level of the heart is known as Brahma Granthi, presided over by the deity Brahma, which represented the incessant creation of the manifested world which impinges upon our inner consciousness. At the level of throat is Vishnu Granthi, presided over by the deity Vishnu, which represents the substance of this manifested world and the continuous entanglement of the consciousness in the web created by it. At the level of the eyebrows is the Rudra Granthi, presided over by the deity Rudra, which annihilates the whole creation, restoring back the whole manifestation to its original source. Unless this knot is untied, one would never realize the background reality which is behind the continuously changing manifested world. When the Kundalini is awakened and prana starts rising through Sushumna, a student starts getting more and more higher spiritual experiences. But if the student is not leading a very orderly and disciplined lifestyle in strict accordance with the basic guidelines given in Yam and Niyama part of yoga, the activated Kundalini does not rise up and remain stagnant at either Muladhara or some other lower chakra. If it remains stagnant at Muladhara, it may help the person to achieve some worldly ambitions but could also lead to some unwanted effects too. As the Muladhara chakra is intimately linked with the sex energy, the blockade of the activated Kundalini at this level can lead to excessive or even perverted sexual feelings. This incomplete rise of Kundalini and its stagnation at various centers is considered to contribute in various ailments of the organs under the control of specific chakras. To avoid this, the student of yoga who is interested in the spiritual experiences arising out of Kundalini arousal is advised to follow very strictly the guidelines given in yama and niyama. Here it would not be out of place to refer to another concept found in one of the ancient scriptures known as Shatka Nirupana. The description given here has a very great practical bearing for those who take up the path of Kundalini arousal. It says that at the base of the skull, where the cavities of skull and spinal canal meet, the Sushumna splits into two branches. One branch takes anterior course reaching the Sahasrara through Agya Chakra, while the other one takes a posterior course going straight to Sahasrara. The first one is called Purvamarga and the other is called Paschimmarga. According to Yogi Gyaneshwara, there are 5 more chakras along the Paschimmarga and they are known as Trikuta, Shrihata, Golata, Otapitha and Brahmaragumfa. While on the Purvamarga, the Kundalini has to move from Vishuddha Chakra to Brahmanandhara through only one chakra, i.e. Agya Chakra, while on the Paschim Marga it has to pierce additional 4 chakras, making the process still more difficult. In Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, there is no mention of Kundalini and the emphasis is mainly on the Chittavriti Nirodha, or in other words the Manojaya. On the other hand, in Kundalini Yoga, the emphasis is on Pranajaya. The Manojaya is required to take Paundava Marga, while the Pranajaya is achieved through the Paschim Marga. In the broader Hatha Yoga tradition, the emphasis is on combining these 2 approaches and to achieve Pranajaya and Manojaya in a mutually helpful way. Therefore, a text like Hatha Pradipika mentions in a very clear terms that all the Hatha Yoga techniques involving the methods or Pranajaya are basically to help the path of Raja Yoga, which involves the approach of Manojaya.